Hello, I'm Professor Margaret Rogers van Coops, and I have to be honest with you and say that throughout my life there's been a lot of suffering. I've had emotionally, mentally, physically and spiritually trauma. I started off life during World War II on Midsummer's Day, 24th of June 1942, so you can do the math and work out how old I am. But the thing here that I want to say is that people don't realize that when we go through some mental or emotional trauma, we actually put that trauma into the muscles and nervous system of our body. So by the time I had gotten to be about 35, I was traumatized to such a degree through a combination of upbringing, two marriages, and abuse, and of course a lot of issues with many clients and patients in England, that I was overwhelmed with so much to do, and it was inevitable that I would crash. Now, if you're interested in knowing more about my life, then you can get a copy of my ebook or the softback, My Journey into the Oneness, and that will give you a lot of insight into who I am and what I do. And I think you'll find it quite interesting, because I seem to encounter so many things that most people either don't talk about or admit to it, but get into fantasy and illusion. And I do understand that, because it's very easy to make 2 and 2 make 44, as it were, and come up with all sorts of weird ideas, thoughts, feelings, and so on about yourself and the things that have happened to you. Of course, when we're evolving in a spiritual sense, people always say to me, well, why do I have so much trauma? I'm very psychic. I'm trying to use those skills to help myself, but every time I do, it seems like I attract more negativity. Why does that happen to me? Well, the bottom line is only old souls can really handle a lot of pain and suffering, fear, anger, guilt, and so on. And partly because they have it encoded in their DNA from their ancestors. And I did write a book called Donald Trump, The Enigma of Society, channeled of course, where his ancestors were brought into the picture to explain the many aspects of Donald Trump's personality as to why he ended up being president. And by the way, he was meant to be president, so his job was to turn everything that we believe upside down so that we'd refresh and rethink and restructure. So everyone has a very important role to make. And the older the soul, the more difficult the task. If we take something like Jesus as an example, someone I should say like Jesus for an example, he came into the world and was in many ways different from the norm, studied under Essenes, and metaphysically grew and evolved spiritually to become a spokesperson for the oneness. And in those days, one didn't use the word oneness because people didn't understand that. And being born out of a Jewish relationship, it was inevitable that he was going to be in conflict between his Essene training and his Judaic training. For example, you can't play on the Sabbath, and yet he was. And some of the Bible books that were about his early life were actually removed from the King James Version. It is available, the unpublished works or something like that of the Bible. It was translated by one of the archbishops in England who spoke the language of those days and was able to do just that, translate it and publish it. And I think it's very important to understand that psychic children are a little bit wayward. They're a handful, in other words, to their parents, because they do the unexpected, they feel the unexpected, and they come out with such so-called outrageous statements against philosophy or religion or something in some way that kind of disturbs the adult world. So that was the pathway I grew up in. And in the process of my evolvement and my listening to the oneness and Jesus and people like that, you can always see that there is suffering from the point of view of the psychic soul healer self that has to learn the hard way through suffering what not to do. So, for example, if I rushed out and stood in New York in Times Square and started preaching all about metaphysical studies, I'm sure that a bunch of different religious people who are ardent followers of their religion would turn up and say, she's a witch. So we have to realize, though, that that was all to do with the Piscean age, and now we're in the Aquarian age. We need to understand that there are many old souls incarnating in children right now who are going to be the pioneers in transforming this world. So what do we have in our body that is so painful? In the muscles and the nerve endings and in the bone structure and so on. And why does everything hurt us so much? Well, I have a terminology called pains of the world. And I can give you a little example of my last husband, Stephen Van Coops, who was gorgeous, very supportive to me, who was suffering with many illnesses and diseases throughout his body. And it was during my constant times of healing him in so many different ways that I started to realize I was chasing pains around his body. He would say, oh, my left little finger is hurting, and I'd work on that. And then 2 minutes later, now my back's hurting. And 2 minutes later, oh, my hips are hurting, and so on. And I started to realize that he had so many blocks in his body, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, that it was near on impossible to keep him completely and utterly well. Why? Well, here we come into astrology. He was a Pisces, and if anyone knows a Pisces, you know that they are complainers, and they mourn and suffer and sacrifice themselves for the benefits of others. And I will say my husband did that frequently and was a really good-hearted person who helped many. But he didn't allow himself to let go of his own pain. So what was the pain he was suffering? Well, I tried to help him to understand that when we see someone, we copy them, because we learned to copy when we were children. We mimic them. We might rationalize in our mind that we have actually overcome an issue, but we identify with an issue, and even though we consciously think it's all cleared up, it's not. It's still in your subconscious and the deep subconscious. The conscious mind is a liar and a cheat. It says, I know what I'm doing, and you rush off out to do what you're doing, only to find everything collapses around you. And then you think, why has this happened to me? It's not fair. I'm really trying my hardest. But you see, you've put 2 and 2 together and assumed you have to do it right away, and maybe you're too early, because you haven't listened to your subconscious that is saying, you can put this on the back burner, just make a few notes and come back to this later. Or your deep subconscious, your spiritual mind, is telling you, this is a lesson for you. You need to pull back and reconsider every aspect of what you've just decided to do, and realize that you rushed into it without all the known inner facts from your divine self. Well, of course, that's a part of hypnosis too, because the mind is very capable of giving you such strong images that you really believe that everything you see in your mind is reality. But in truth, a lot of the things that you see are actually symbols. So let's say I decided I wanted to write a new book, and I'm thinking I have 3 clients who are all complaining about the fact that their men don't listen to them. So I think, oh, that's a good topic for a book. And then I sit down and start writing from my own personal experiences, all about my experience in dealing with husbands that weren't supporting me. Might sound like a good book, but it could end up being a judgment book. It could end up being a go on and round the houses, as we used to say in England, never really getting the point across, moaning and groaning, exposing self to people who are going to read the book and agree with you or tell you that you're off your head. Is that really going to help people? Well, in the overview, if you're a mature soul, that kind of book might well attract a lot of followers who are also mature souls. You see, we're all mirror image of what we do. So if I'm doing a book like that, I expect to get a lot of people who are saying, why does this keep happening to me? I keep trying so hard. Well, mature souls will sacrifice themselves and then blame and shame. But old souls, they don't. They say, it's my own fault I went out there. I didn't stop and listen to my images and watch them and feel them. So let's say I saw the book in my head. Then I would come back to, what does a book mean to me? It means a talk, a lecture, something else maybe, a sharing. And I have to step back and ask myself, is this something I really want to do? Do I have the time to do it? Are there disciplines here that it calls for me to really get into the mode and mood of writing that book? Or am I being inspired from my deep subconscious to listen to my spirit guides who are waiting patiently for me to stop running around like a chicken with her head cut off and sit down and say, okay, what is this book really about? And then they might say it's about the coding that one has in the deep subconscious that allows the conscious mind to mess up. Well, that sounds funny. What would I write about that? Well, I would begin with saying, I need you to give me a structure. And I would be inspired. Well, there's an intro, there's a format of some kind, there's this and that to do just to set the book up. And then I have to decide how I want to lead a pathway for people to follow, to feel that by the time they get to the end of the book, that it really works for them. That's my rational mind talking. That's my subconscious mind talking. The two are collaging. And I might well have a great big outline and think this is really going to work. And then something happens. I get pulled away from it for a while. And then my spirit guides come back and they'll say, are you ready for this book? Oh, yes, I've got my outline. I've done this, I've done that. And I sit down to start to write and they're in my head and the words flow out of me. And the book turns out to be not only what I wanted, but better. Because my deep subconscious spirit mind knows that I was going to write this book even before I was born. You see, everything in the oneness is now. And everything that we do is set up before we ever are born. But once we get here, we have amnesia. We don't really remember a thing as we're born. We have no knowledge, no language, nothing. So our natural way of learning through the spirit consciousness is to first learn we have a body. And of course, the first thing that you're going to do is wriggle and pee and poop. And when you do that, poop especially, you get little pains. You get gas in your belly, you get little pains. So your primary program is, I'm here in this body and I'm already suffering. And then, as you wriggle and move about, you get stronger. Your muscles start correlating with what your baby mind is feeling. Not what you're thinking, because you haven't got words yet. But you feel those pains in your belly, you feel you're thrown up, you feel discomforted. And so your primary program is to find comfort and to avoid being discomforted. But you don't have a word for it, do you? So it's just a feeling. And then, let's fast forward to a year, you've now learned to crawl and stand up and hold on to a chair. You're excited because you've gotten from one place in the room to the other, and there's all this world and all these things around you that you can now touch. So your arms reaching out, your hands are learning to control and hold things. Now let's say I'm a little baby and I've got this ball and I want to put it in my mouth, and as I bring it to my mouth I bang my nose. It's a pain. One of the most painful places is your nose if you bang it. And so immediately I'm going to drop the ball or whatever it is I have, and I'm going to cry. And in that moment of crying, the position I'm in and what happened to me is stored in the brain. And the brain then correlates that back down through all the meridians in your body to the area you've just hurt, your nose. Okay? And you make a little program in your brain that you have to be careful with your nose. Well, it's a very basic one. It's just anatomical. And you're not aware that you're guarding your nose with your life, as it were. But hey, we learn to grow up and hear things and pay attention to the words. And we hear this area has a name, nose. And then we hear statements like, don't stick your nose into other people's business. Oh, I was only asking a question. Why are they being so horrid to me? Suddenly, there's another type of emotion attached to your nose. This is an emotional one that has a rationale. And at that moment, your brain is saying, okay, rationale, nose hurts, nose, remember, don't stick it in. Now, look in the mirror. Hey, do you like your nose? Maybe not. Or, oh, okay, you're a nosy person. You've heard that said too. Okay? But I'm only learning. I only want to know things. Why are people so mean to me? Now, while you're thinking all those things, your body is in certain positions. I can't show you all my positions. But just by moving my hands like this, they're all positions that my brain has an association with those positions of the hand to my feet, to my body language, to the way I walk, talk, move. Now, if you have had a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder through abuse, misuse to yourself or by other people to you, then you will have had caution very much in your conscious mind to protect yourself. And so you would have amassed in various muscles tension. And tension be stress. And stress from the mind to the heart is emotional pain. So by the time you're 4, 5 or 6, you've programmed your entire body to feel those places that you've put a pattern of energy into. And that becomes your style of walking. If you ever sit in a park or somewhere in public and watch people walking by, you're going to find that some people walk with their head down like this and they never look up, and they look up through their eyes like this and maybe lift their head up a bit and drop their head. Very introverted. There are a lot of people who do that. Even Princess Diana dropped her head and looked sideways up like that. Okay, because you could see she had a lot of fear even before she went into the marriage. So when we look back at our lives, we can see that every day, every hour, every minute, every second, our body is moving. And if we're not moving, for example, we've fallen asleep in a chair, we twitch. And while we dream, we are running, jumping, talking, doing something. Our body, though it's still, is running the energies as though you've actually got up and are moving. So you can wake up from sleep and feel totally unrested, totally distressed, angry about something, not sure what, and take it out on your husband or your kids. Okay? I want you to understand that your body is... Oops, that's my phone. Let me switch it off. Okay, that your body is a program, just like your computer. Your brain is the master control switch. And it will let you know something from a conscious level, a subconscious level, and a deep subconscious level. So let me explain that a little more. Conscious level means I'm awake, aware, and I'm watching, looking, touching, feeling, and I'm going through a situation right now, so record it in the brain and block it throughout the body, into the nerves, into every cell in the body, including the digestive tract, your heart, your lungs, your liver, and so on. So, unknown to you, you are a living, walking program of existence. And unknown to you, you will respond to outside forces, be it weather, hot or cold, storms and things like that, people, animals, plants, the list goes on, that you've had an experience with. And if you've had a very negative response to everything, you will also have your body encoded with a lot of anger, even rage, fear, pain, guilt, loss, and lots of other things like fear of animals and people and planes and boats and trains that you rationalize on a conscious level. While inwardly in your subconscious you're saying, I'm afraid of the world, without genetically applying it to one thing or another. I just have this inner fear of life. I wish I was dead. I wish I was not in this family. I don't belong to them. I feel I'm an outsider. And all of these rationales that come forward like this are coming from your images that you've stored in your subconscious. So let me talk about your images. If you see a photo of something that happened to you 10 years ago that you had forgotten all about it, that photo would remind you of the event. And as you talk about the event, bringing more memories forward with more images, you may well set yourself up by the end of your investigation to feel you're in pain, angry, frustrated, and so on. And here you start to rationalize, I'm suffering again, and nobody cares about me, and you reprogram yourself over and over again throughout your life to acknowledge you have so much pain, anger, fear, guilt, loss, etc. And then one day you suddenly find your bones are hurting. You've got rheumatism and arthritis. Well, that's conducive to anger, fear, pain, anger, guilt, and loss, etc. So if I'm someone like Princess Diana, when I drop my head and stoop my shoulders and try and look like I'm not really wanting to communicate, I'm really saying I'm afraid of the world. Her challenge in her life was to get out there and do her thing, which she did, and win the people's hearts, which she did, to leave a message. You can do like me. You can overcome adversities and turn your life into successes. However, she still had within her the fear of authority. Why? Because she had too much authority growing up in her early years from her parents, especially her father. So things were not the way a princess would want them to be. She wasn't nurtured. Okay? But then again, in the overview as an old soul, she was exactly where she was meant to be, and she was psychic. So she knew intuitively that she was going to be married to the prince, but would never be queen. So we weren't surprised, were we? But for her, it was always about finding love. And that's one of the most important things that we need to learn from our deep subconscious. Lying within the deep subconscious is the soul coding, and with it our past lives. We won't go into all of those now, but we've had past lives that are good and bad that correlate with what one wants to learn in this life. And spirit guides or a medium will reveal them to you when you're ready. Okay, not before. And that correlates with what's going on in your life at the time. Now, assuming you're psychic and you're an alpha type and you're spiritually very aware, awakened like I was from a child, then you have the ability to immediately connect with your spirit guides that you're bonded with in the oneness. And whoever it was that you bonded with will be there to nurture you through your growing years and onward up till death. But the thing is, we transition and change and grow throughout our lives, so the spirit guides have to transition and change throughout our lives to fit in with what we're doing. Where possible, they will help us to see our errors of our ways, as it were, by wrong thinking, wrong emotional traumas, and so on. For example, I had a client once who was walking down an alley, and she almost had a nervous fit because she was so sure that some man was following her and going to rape her, and when she found a light and looked back, there was no one there. And she was nervous all the way home, sort of running. By the time she got home, she was almost having a heart attack. That's how she felt. Now, what was she really feeling? She was feeling her spirit guides behind her, protecting her. But her conscious mind was saying it had to be something evil. Why? Because she had too many experiences of negative people hurting her. So she didn't know how to tap into her subconscious or her deep subconscious to connect with her spirit guides. Well, she joined my psychic class, and over the years did many levels. There are 5 levels to my classes. And today is a medium and helps a lot of people, and is entirely a different person, confident, strong, and very active in the world. So my point here is that all your suffering does not have to be continual throughout your life. If you're one of these people who's constantly angry or constantly miserable, you need to take a long look at yourself and say, why am I listening to my conscious mind all the time? Why am I saying this and this makes sense? And now I can talk about it and tell everybody how badly I was treated and so on and so forth. Well, I admit when we're children, we can't just move out and go and live somewhere else. We're under the influence of parents, adults, grandparents, aunts, uncles, Tom, Dick and Harry up the road, the kids in school. The list is endless. And every day someone is saying to us, don't do that, or you should have done this, or you might have been better if you'd have thought, and so on. So by the time you're a late teenager, you've made up your mind that you're the failure of the century. Now, it's up to you at that point to open up your psyche and say, help, oneness, God, spirit guides, I need to evolve, I need to tap into my deep subconscious, I need to find my programming. But of course, if you're in a redneck scenario where everybody is just beer drinking and supposedly going to church on Sundays and then coming out and hitting someone or other, not much of a model there, is there, for unity? And of course, fear rears its head. What is fear for? It's to teach us what not to do. It's to teach us what not to think. It's to teach us what not to copy, what not to feel. And most importantly, it's teaching us to not forget our psyche. Now you might say, well, I'm not psychic. But I have to tell you, everyone is psychic. Older generations don't actually develop it unless there's someone like me with a program within their deep subconscious that says, come here and teach. And there are a lot of us down like that. But there are also many others who are switched off, as it were, from their psyche. And you might say, well, why? Why can't they have that treasure? But you see, the oneness needs the dark and the light to interact. So when someone's miserable, it makes an opportunity for someone who's psychic to help them. And in that moment, there's an exchange of energy. Auras entwine. Lessons are learned. The dark side person moves away and starts to seek more light, and the light person evolves. And in that way, we start to become a new race of humans. For the last 3,500 years, we've been in the great Piscean age. And that has all been about violence, control, manipulation. We've had men lead the way and women suppress. Well, now we're actually finally in the Aquarian age from 3rd of March 21, 333, 9, end of the old great Aquarian age and the beginning of the new end of the old Piscean age, I don't know if I said that right, and the beginning of the great Aquarian age. So here we are, a few days into it now, and you may not realize it, but all sorts of things are happening around you. People are turning up and putting pieces of puzzles where you missed them out before together for you. So you start to see, oh, I could do that after all, where before you'd put it on the back burner. Information about how you think and how you feel is coming to you from the influence of other people who are around you. They may mirror image you. They may show you up as someone who's negative. Well, don't blame them. It's there for you to see to stop being negative. Or it might be they're just dramatizing their negativity in front of you to sit there and go, gosh, is that how I used to look 10 years ago? I often do that. I need to be reminded that I too was a nagging wife. So, what abuse did I earn by nagging? Or was I defending myself? Or was I protecting the children? There was always something going on that I was rationalizing. And somehow, at the same time, listening to my spirit guide who was saying, step back, don't respond, or smile. Say, I love you today when you're angry. There are a lot of different ways to move a person from a point of view that's negative to a happy one where they feel that someone notices them and cares. I might add that anyone who's negative is lacking love. Those of us who feel loved and give love feel safe. So where does that come from? It comes from the deep subconscious, the part of you where you are aware of your idiosyncrasies, your fears, your anxieties, worries, skills, and so on, your arts, your crafts, your general abilities to overcome adversities and to flourish in the creativeness of your being. I used Sir Winston Churchill in the Donald Trump book, The Enigma of Society, because as a reference, because if you see about his life, he was born in the 1800s to a family in India who were used to servants and upper class and silver goblets or whatever else they had in India, and then parents going off to fight in the Light Brigade to put down the rebels and so forth. And that was an education in being a warrior. It wasn't that he liked it, but it was that he needed to understand the warrior. In the same way, I had to understand World War II and see the warrior in myself. Okay? Now, once you come out of knowing your type, archetype, and I'm not going into the soul structure coding at the moment, I'm just using the word warrior literally, we learn to fight. We learn to stand up for who we are and for what we believe in. But question mark, is what we believe in what someone told us to believe in and we've taken it as gospel? I can certainly tell you from my life that I knew that there was a lot wrong with this world, and all these elders were telling me how to behave, not to talk to people, not to do this and that. I was a rebel. Behind backs, I was doing what I shouldn't have done. But hey, that was how I found myself. That's how I found I could integrate myself with those who were suffering. So you see, it was a positive journey, not a bad one really. We all have different ups and downs in our life. And coming back to Winston Churchill, when he got into Parliament, it was because his father said he should. And because that was the tradition of the family. And so he goes in as a commoner. He learns all the ins and outs of Parliament in England and earns a reputation for what he's doing. But then again, there was a lot who didn't like him. He was too to the point. He was too direct in the way he spoke. He wasn't gentlemanly enough in the House of Lords. People were trying to put him down. And what did he do? He stood his ground. You see, an old soul will do that. In the face of adversity, an old soul will say, I am what you see. And if you don't like it, too bad. And so he learned to be strong. So the warrior learned to know his tools. And his tool was speech. Of course, then the war broke out, and Attlee resigned, and the only one who had any good abilities to think about how England could protect themselves was to find someone with experience. Who had the experience? Well, Winston Churchill had been to war in India, and he'd learned to fight for the government, and so he was asked to be the next Prime Minister. Good journey, right? But hey, what was he doing all the way through that war besides overseeing the maneuvers? He had loads of generals and people to do that for him. He was looking for support. He was looking for unity. He was looking for the love of mankind to bond together. And so many of his talks were about, we the people, rise up, bond together, we are a nation, and so on and so forth, who can fight the evil in Germany, etc., etc. And people did. They pulled their weight, they did whatever they needed to do, and miracles with the Americans finally joining in towards the end of the war, Britain survived. And then he comes out of that, resigns, because he doesn't really want to be doing Prime Minister of how to buy stock and all that kind of thing, or run the country in terms of dairy produce and things that were now an issue, because the war had left England with practically nothing in the stores. So once again he was asked to bring the country back into shape, and it didn't happen once, it happened twice as Prime Minister. And so that was his labor. That was his, this is what I know, and this is what I'm telling you, and I'll do it for as long, but I don't really have my heart and soul in this, but I will do it so that people can understand. And then finally, when he finally gets old, he can't serve the Queen anymore, loyal to her all the way through, kind to her all the way through, guided her all the way through, and finally says, I'm not well, I have to resign. He lived to be an older man who was a Prime Minister. A bit unusual in those days. And then what did he do? He finally listened to his spirit, his soul. And he was obsessed with what was it within his spirit, his soul, that had made this journey all the way through life. And get to the point of finding he's an artist. And being an artist, there was an obsession with the garden and the pond. And what he wanted to know was, what was it about that? And what he finally learned before he passed was that he had not embraced the deep subconscious part of his spirit that had guided him with the guidance of inspiration through his spirit guides to lead the British people and the American people throughout World War II. So there you see, there's a life that can be explained. So let me come back to you. Have you thought about the value of your life? Have you thought about how you have programmed your body to be in fear, pain, anger, and guilt, and have not given yourself a reprieve, have not let yourself let go of all of that and open up to the inner sense of healing that your spirit self can give this body? Because just as it did so long ago, motivate you to wriggle and squeal and cry and crawl and walk, it can help you heal yourself. So I've done a lot of talking here about the state of your mind. But let's go into your body. Let's say you suddenly have a shoulder pain and it's really bothering you, and it's bothering this muscle here. Okay, the natural thing is, oh, poor arm, I'm going to put it in a sling. Okay, I've got to protect it. Okay, I can tell you I damaged my right arm playing golf and carrying 70-pound, 2 70-pound cases back and forth to Japan 3 times a year for years. And there was never any help from the men when I early went, because men didn't carry cases. The women were supposed to do it. And my first arrival was a little girl. She was a woman, actually. When I say little girl, the size of one of our 10-year-olds, came to help me carry my cases. And of course, that didn't do me much good. I carried them myself. So I damaged my arm for 2 reasons. So the immediate thing was everyone was saying, oh, we've got to put balm on it, we've got to put menthol on it, we've got to do this, that, and so on. And I could not move it any higher than about 3 inches from where its normal position was. So what did I do? I didn't give in to that pain. I brought my arm up, pushing it up, helping it, took it all the way up, pulled it back, pushed it back, moved my arm around until I could do this, and then my bones clicked back in place. And at the same time, I remembered hitting my boys when they were young, because they were naughty, and I was hit when I was young badly, and so I would chase around after them trying to smack their bottoms, often missing it, but that's what we were doing, because we do tend to bring up our children the way our parents brought us up. Now that may have worked for the Piscean age, but it doesn't work for the Aquarian age, because the children being born psychic are not going to put up with any violence. They're going to rise up and tell someone, Mummy's hitting me. The next thing you know, you've got welfare on your doorstep. Okay? So what you have to realize now is that it is time for you to release your fear, pain, anger, guilt, loss, etc. from your body. So what I'm planning on doing to help you do that is to do an intro course on my crystal acupuncture and teragram therapy. Crystal acupuncture allows you to send your own energy around your body and break up the blocks. Teragram therapy allows you to rebuild your chakras and centralize your 5 bodies, which make up your aura, into a unit that is healed, healthy, and better. Now you might say, well, that sounds like a bit of this and that, and I don't know if I trust it. Well, I can tell you that when I was 35, I was so depressed, so run down, so everything negative, that I was shaking like this. I had Parkinson's disease. Now I won't go into my whole story, because if you want to read it, it's in my book, My Journey into the Oneness. But I was shaking so much I couldn't even put the crystal on my finger. Now I'm not going to show you crystal acupuncture and teragram therapy practice here, but I am going to say that as a result of Master Chang, one of my spirit guides, coming to me at that time and telling me that he could stop the energy in 3 weeks, I listened. And in 3 weeks of doing my fingertips with my shards of crystals that I had in those days, because you could not get cut crystals at all. And in that 3 days I went from this to this. And you can see I don't shake, I don't have Parkinson's disease anymore. My little black blobs have gone. How did I do that? Well, I did crystal acupuncture to all my fingers. I did crystal acupuncture to my face, because think about your face. We want to look beautiful, but what happens when you're angry? Okay, you've got muscle movements in that face. There are 101, I think it is, muscles in your face that allow you to be expressive. Okay, so if you're angry face, you don't see yourself, you're not looking in a mirror. So guess what I did? I put mirrors up all over my house, so that every time I was angry with my kids, there was a mirror somewhere that I could look in and see my miserable face. That was a big awakening to me. And then I realized I needed to do crystal acupuncture to all the muscles in my face. But hey, your face isn't all on your body on its own. It's connected to every part of your body. So when you treat beauty crystal and use creams as well, of course you want to look beautiful, you are going to release a whole lot of negative energy from the rest of your body and your brain. So crystal acupuncture turned out to be one of my fortes that I went on to teach over probably 7,000 Japanese people how to do it on intro level, of which today there's about 2,000 who are practicing and healing people with crystal acupuncture. It was a door opener for me and a great time for me to learn and evolve with this therapy. And I'm planning on doing on SumarisEducationCenter.com an intro course on crystal acupuncture and another intro course on Teragram therapy. Now, I'm still working on myself even after all these years. Yeah, I'm 78, but I don't feel it, as you can tell. I still carry on like I'm in my 50s or 60s. And I do take care of myself, and I am still releasing negativity. Because you see, if you stop and think about every day of your life, you've got ups and downs that happen. And those ups and downs are correlated with past ups and downs and stored in your brain. So your brain is so full of everything you've ever done, your conscious mind couldn't even pull it all up. It would be overwhelmed. And because I'm talking about this right now, I'm feeling a need to cough, so I will. Because I'm talking about my clearing my throat chakra from all the rationale that I've talked about, not just from my circumstances of 3 marriages, 4 children and parents and so on and so forth, but also from all the students I've ever taught, and also from all the patients and clients I've treated. My spirit guides tell me that throughout my life, from being a public figure at 21 till now, that, well, they didn't tell me just now, I have to go back 10 years. They told me that I had directly one-on-one taught, trained, healed over 40,000 people. I was like, bolt. But when I stopped to think about it, yes, I had. Because I had done many seminars, many workshops that I'd put on. Then I'd done many conferences, many festivals, many television, radio shows. The list went on, and at that point I was musing on it, and Spirit said, well, if you want to include all your videos and radio shows, you better go to millions. Sorry. I'm still dealing with that concept, because the idea that I could reach so many is still part of what they put in my mind. So, see me coughing, and I want you to understand just how the throat chakra will respond to what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And this is a biggie for me, because now I'm working with Reverend Katie Kamara. Oh dear, this is a big one, isn't it? You can see that, even my eyes are watering. But then I want you to see that, because I want you to understand I'm no different from you. When we have an issue, we're either talking off at the mouth, which I'm doing anyway right now. We're thinking about memories so we can justify, rationalize, explain, teach, and so on. And then we're also thinking about the body, in my case now, because I'm teaching you about the body and how it stores energy. So here's a big button pusher for me to bring out for you to see how easily our brain turns on the switch that makes us feel fear, pain, anger, guilt, and loss. But it also, when that comes up, teaches us spit it out, talk it out. Now, you've heard of people who are bulimic. Their intuition says, I've got to be nice, I've got to fit in with everyone, so I can't be fat, I have to be this, I have to be that. And of course we all know Princess Diana was bulimic. That's just one example. There are other people who withdraw and hide themselves in their bedrooms. There are other people who rant and rave, and everyone knows they exist, and they're a headache to everyone. You know, there's a lot of drama that goes on around what's going on in our brain and throughout our body. And as you know, when we're full of fear, pain, anger, and guilt, our body racks with pain. And in time, we take on the position of that pain. and then the bones go out, the ligaments get stronger in that they're calcified and snap and so on, and we fall and break a bone, and now with poor me with, I'm using the arm because it's the only part you see with an arm sling, and you can't, you're right-handed, you can't do, and you're trying to fiddle with the other hand. I'm lucky, I'm ambidextrous. But that's because I taught myself to be ambidextrous. You see, we can all learn to write with left or right hand, okay? And so what I want you to understand here is that if you're wanting to move this energy from your body, I'd love to entice you to want to come to my workshop that I will be doing with instruction and show and tell with crystals. Now, you're obviously got some crystals yourself because everyone's buying them. It doesn't matter what size they are. However, if you bring something that's this big, it's not going to be very easy to do your points on your finger. So try and find some with, you know, small crystals with points or shards. If you've been to a crystal show where they're selling them, you'll be able to buy some, or go to the local store that sells crystals, or go online, because there are a lot of people selling them, and they're quite cheap to buy. I started doing all this, of course, in a time when you couldn't even get quartz. Okay, little story here. My first vision of a quartz, real vision, was a guy saying, this is a quartz and this is what's in your watch, and he's moving it backwards and forwards like this, and I can see all the rainbow colors, not in the crystal, the traces of it. And so I knew this was something really powerful, and I bugged that man to let me have that crystal. He was so sick of me asking, where'd you get it? When can I get it? Where can I get one? And so he just said, here, take the thing, because it was the end of the expo. So today they're all over the place. There's 1,001 stones that have been pulled out of the earth. But the ones that are the cheapest are actually the most numerous across the planet and work the best. Why? Because they're remnants of the gaseous compounds that fell back to the earth at the time of the earth forming, and the molecules that are in the way it cooled are defining how your energy will pass in and around, finding its way through those crystals to come out at the point as a stream of light that is a sound resonation light that runs through your body and breaks up the blocks in your body. What happens as a result of doing the crystal work is that you start to clear your negativity. Your personality grows, your insights and inspirations evolve, you start to want to be a different person, do different stuff, and you feel free, and your body is healing. But how do we balance the new you? That's where we move over to Teragram therapy. Teragram is actually my name spelled backwards, T-E-R-A-G-R-A-M. When I was in school as a kid, the kids ragged one another, and I'm afraid I was always picked on because I was psychic, so different. And when my husband came up with the suggestion that we have this name to register the therapy as a trademark, etc., how did you know the kids called me that? He said, no, I was just fiddling and it came to me. Well, if you look at the word teragram, in it is terra of the earth, T-E-R-R-A, gram is a weight, and the stone doesn't have to be heavy or big. There's it's my initials in it, of course, MR. At the time of creating Teragram therapy, I had not become an American. I was still a British citizen, even though living here, married to my husband. So I was well known all over the world in Europe and places like that as Margaret Rogers, so I didn't rush to change my name. But one day, just a little bit of news here that stimulated me as an example of input where it affects us. I got an email from someone thanking me for my gardening book. What? So I went online and found out there were hundreds of Margaret Rogers all over the world who were authors. And that made me decide I needed to include my husband's name, Van Coops. And when I decided to become a citizen soon after that, I had my full name, Margaret Patricia Rogers Van Coops. And you know, I did myself a favor, because if you put Rogers Van Coops in the computer, I'm the only one that comes up. Unique, yes? So these are things that somehow we learn a lesson. Some things come to us and we learn something, and we need to use the tools that we're shown to use. And so what's in a name? A name is you. And the you portray is the you people remember. And if you spend time looking back at people who have been in the public eye, there's something about them that makes them different, that makes you remember them. The people wimp and fall away could well be one of those people, because you're seeing a lesson about yourself that you haven't seen before. But as you do the crystals and then start to work with the teragrams, you begin to balance your life. So teragrams are geode slices that I had colored. Colored's very important. And when those are placed on the third eye, the throat, where I was coughing, my heart chakra, you have to imagine you're going below me, follow me, your solar plexus, and down where your private parts are, your base or root chakras it's called. And then to your left rear side, I have to stand up a little bit just for this, because you'll never get it, and it's so important, so just bear with me a moment. Left rear hip bone, right front hip bone, and these energy goes backwards and forwards through here, stimulating the other ones to move up and down. So you put a teragram back here, and that helps all these that are being rotated at the same time, going round and round in circles. And after you've finished, you can then close your fists and wriggle your feet and close all your muscles. Well, I'm going to teach you all that in this workshop. And we will do it over a period of time, because I know everybody has got a schedule, but hey, you're all at home locked up anyway, so I'll probably choose a few weekends. So if you're interested and you like to learn crystal acupuncture and teragram therapy on www.sumaris.educationcenter.com, which is currently being built, so be patient with me a bit more. I've been through a roller coaster. For those of you who don't know, my husband passed over a year ago now. He was my manager, and so I've met Reverend Katie Kamara, who is working with me on all the things that we're going to share. And she is also a great teacher, and she's half my age and very psychic. So can you imagine what she will be like when she's my age? And can you imagine what her children will be like when they're her age? They're not going to be anything like I was at their age, because it's a different time period. It's a different understanding. It's a new Aquarian age in the inner cycle of about 240 years, but in the greater Aquarian age, which is going the opposite way, where all the ages, 12 ages will go through. So 12 by 240 years, you can get an idea, do the math. We got a lot of thousands of years going by. What will we be like when we finish the Aquarian age? Ethereal? Will we even be here anymore? Will we be on another planet? Were we living on Mars before? Of course we were. But people don't seem to understand that we as human beings are amazing beings. We have the ability to do anything that nobody else, no other beings on this planet can do. Who made us? Pardon me, I haven't eaten. Where are we coming from? What are we going to do with our future? Okay? Well, it remains to be seen what the codings are of the children yet to be born come into this world with directives within their deep subconscious, flowing into their subconscious and images, and then out through their third eye, their brains, processing all that. Maybe we'll be bigger by then. Maybe we'll be more aware of our bodies to move them in different manners for different reasons. Well, it's not important to know that. What is important is to know that right now you can heal yourself. The crystal acupuncture and teragram therapy is currently being considered for sales in companies like Amazon and Walmart. But it takes time, and with COVID, all these things that were bouncing around ready to hop are now put on the back burner. They're not going to do it, but for now, we have to wait until everything's cleared up and businesses start evolving again. So if you'd like a kit, I can give you a teragram kit, and I have some crystal acupuncture kits as well. If you'd like to come and do this workshop with me, where you'll learn how to help and heal yourself or your kids or someone else. Remember, you won't be trained to be a professional therapist. There's much more to it. This is just an intro for self-help. And if you'd like to be on that course, below here is an area you can sign up, put your name, put all the details, put reasons why. If you've got suffering, I'd like to know, is it mental, emotional, physical? And if you know exactly what's wrong, you can put that in, like if you've got Parkinson's or diverticulitis or something, then I'd like to know, so that while I'm teaching how to use the crystals, any of you have got issues, I'll mention them and what happens with which crystal would be good to use. And at the same time, after you've learned that, we go on to do the teragram therapy. We'll be looking at the way you think and feel and what you can do, and I'll be giving you some free meditations to download to work with them. So there, I've spent just about an hour teaching you more about this. So please go to sumariseducationcenter.com and look for the page on courses and sign in that you're interested, and leave your phone number. Particularly, I'll tell you why. I literally will call you, or Katie will call you, to let you know when we're going to start the course, or my secretary will call you, Caroline, to let you know dates and times and to get you to sign up. Okay, so we will really be on the ball when that time comes. In the meantime, we're still building the websites. Katie's very busy with 4 websites, redoing all my books, putting all my videos up. She's wicked, and her own as well. So anyone out there that's listened to all this who feels like you'd like to make contact with me, then you can find me on YouTube or I'm trying to think. My new radio shows, my old radio shows, are now up on SoundCloud.com at gmail.com. I get that right. I'm still learning it. SoundCloud at gmail.com, and then you type in, search Dr. Margaret Speaks in caps, and you'll have access to 133 of my half-hour shows and about 4 lectures that are an hour or 2 hours long, because I've done those recently now that I can do that. So if you want help, there's a lot to get just for free by doing that. And if you'd like to actually talk to me personally, then write through Sumaris Education Center or easypeasysolution.org, where we're going to give a lot of free talks. So you might want to go there and sign up too. And leave a message for me, and I will contact you, and we'll go from there in helping you deal with whatever your issue is. So I want to thank you for listening, and I do hope that you'll enjoy this 1 hour and find it interesting enough to want to share it with other people you know who are suffering emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, because I can tell you, if they learn these therapies and do them on themselves, they will get better. The only requirement is that you